We're constantly hearing about companies pledging to go green. But let's be real. How much of that is actual progress and how much is just talk? Today, we're diving into the framework that actually helps us tell the difference.
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? When a company makes a big climate promise, how can we or anyone actually verify it? And this isn't just a curiosity for us as consumers. It's a massive, massive challenge for the entire financial world.
Exactly. As Michael Bloomberg pointed out, investors are often flying blind. They're trying to figure out which companies are genuinely getting ready for a low-carbon future and which ones might be hiding some pretty significant risks.
And this goes way beyond just the environment. We're talking about the stability of the entire market. See, without clear, trustworthy information, investors can't price risk correctly, and that leads to money going to the wrong places, which can create instability across the whole economy. What's needed is a common language. And that, right there, is where this framework comes into play. We're talking about the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, or TCFD for short. It was created to solve this very problem. So the whole goal of the TCFD was to create one clear set of recommendations, a consistent, voluntary way for companies to report on climate issues. The big idea is that an investor in Tokyo should be able to compare two companies just as easily as an investor in New York, everyone speaking the same language. The TCFD's recommendations are all built around four core pillars that get right to the heart of a business: governance, strategy, risk management, and, the one we're really focusing on today, metrics and targets. This is where the promises really meet the pavement. Okay, so let's get into metrics, because you've heard the saying, right? If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And when it comes to climate change, that measurement really starts with a company's carbon footprints. The TCFD is super direct about what matters most here: greenhouse gas emissions, or GHG. And why? Well, it's simple. Emissions are what drive climate change, and climate change creates financial risk for companies through all sorts of things: new policies, new technologies, and huge shifts in the market. Now, to make sure everyone is measuring the same way, the TCFD points everyone towards something called the GHG protocol. It's basically the gold standard used all over the world, and it cleverly breaks down a company's emissions into three distinct categories called scopes. First up is Scope 1. The easiest way to think about this is the stuff coming directly from a company's own facilities. It's all the emissions from sources that the company literally owns or has direct control over, like its factories or its own fleet of delivery trucks. Then we have Scope 2. Now, these are still pretty closely tied to the company, but they're indirect. This is the carbon footprint of the energy the company buys. So think about it. It's not the factory's smokestack, but the emissions from the power plant that's generating all the electricity to keep that factory's lights on. And then there's Scope 3. And this is the big one. It covers basically everything else, all the way up and all the way down a company's value chain. We're talking emissions from the raw materials they buy, the trucks that transport their products that they don't even own, and even the emissions from customers using their products. For a whole lot of companies, this is actually the largest chunk of their carbon footprint. So, once a company gets a handle on its emissions across all three of these scopes, the next step isn't just to keep measuring, it's to start managing. And that means you have to set clear, ambitious targets to bring those numbers down. You see, a vague promise to be greener just doesn't cut it anymore. The TCFD really pushes for specifics. Is your target an absolute reduction in emissions, or is it based on intensity, like, say, emissions per product sold? What's the exact time frame? What year are you starting from? And crucially, what are the key performance indicators, the KPIs, that will show if you're actually on track? This is how a vague promise gets turned into a concrete plan. So, why does all this nitty-gritty reporting actually matter so much? Well, having a common framework for metrics and targets like this creates this incredible ripple effect that goes way beyond just one company's annual report. This quote from Michael Bloomberg just nails it. This isn't about disclosure for the sake of disclosure. It's about feeding the market better information. And when markets have better information, they just work better. They become more efficient, more stable, and way more resilient. So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, for investors, it means clearer, more reliable data to make decisions with. For the rest of us, it means we can finally get a better sense of which companies are truly planning for the long haul.
And that helps direct money to the most forward-thinking businesses, which ultimately helps speed up the whole transition to a low-carbon economy.
And that really leaves us with one final crucial question. Thanks to frameworks like the TCFD, we now have a consistent, reliable way to measure corporate climate action. The question isn't if we can measure it anymore. The question is, how fast can we all manage it?